Hello everyone and welcome to Multifamily Monday. My name is Jesse Greer and I'm the Vice President of Multifamily and Investments at Avis & Young. And today I'm in the offices of a very special guest, Don Tatro, the CEO of the Builders Association of Northern Nevada. Don?
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for having me. Are you kidding me?
Absolutely.
This is going to be an exciting conversation because there's been a lot of issues that have been brought up lately about the housing, the affordability crisis, and other keywords that I won't mention right now, but a little bit later on in the interview here. But before we get started on that, Don, I'd love to learn a little bit more about you and the Builders Association of Northern Nevada.
Yeah. Quick history for me is grew up in this area, went to DC, did a quick stint, kind of got my policy background on the Hill, did some development stuff, some other Dodd-Frank related things, and wound up kind of in a position that combined my history, and that's why I love being here so much.
Yeah.
It was kind of fortunate to find that. And then the Builders Association of Northern Nevada, we are focused on several things. Obviously, we have the networking aspect of an association. We have a strong charity. I'm amazed at what they do. We just finished up a couple $100,000 of renovations at step 2
Fantastic.
to help women stay with their families through addiction treatment. And then we have our advocacy, and that's more what we're talking about in education, and that's either educating the public or electeds or whomever in the advocacy realm on housing and development and building in general in the region.
Now talk to us about, you have the local chapter here, right?
Correct.
Now you're affiliated on a national level, and that's with
Yes.
the National Association of Home Builders.
Correct.
Correct?
Yeah.
Now talk to me about that relationship and how having that national affiliation helps for the local nonprofit.
Yeah, so it really helps a lot. I call them the mothership, right? There's nearly 700 other similar organizations to us in the United States. And what it does is it gives me somewhere to go when there's a new regulation coming up, when there's something. They are constantly putting out housing numbers. I mean, when Wall Street talks about the housing numbers being released, that's coming from NAHB and their economic team.
Okay.
They have a legal team where we're involved in amicus briefs in the Supreme Court. They're heavily involved in waters of the U.S., which was huge for development under the current administration when they rolled back some of the requirements of some of the real stringent, nasty things that were holding up development. So they're kind of in the forefront in there. They're in the White House. They're on Capitol Hill with any party, any administration. That's their role. And then we assist them here locally through either creating or continuing a relationship with our federal delegation. So it really works well on that, and they provide grants for different things. We're providing an amicus brief to the Nevada Supreme Court, which they will help fund, and so there's a great symmetry to it that's really helpful to have it. And plus, I can reach out to my peers, say, hey, this is coming down. What do you guys have? And sometimes I'm like, whoa, we don't have it so bad, or holy cow, we need to stop this. So,
That's amazing. So
yeah.
you're able to get the experience from a national level in
Exactly.
coordinating with other local chapters that had to go through the same type of nuances that we do here as well, it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're not the first to ever have certain terms come
Sure.
out or certain ordinances and to have a playbook ready. Hey, this worked, this didn't. This was the makeup of ours. And it's always a little bit different, but it's not that drastically different throughout the country.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So when you look at your member base, because this is a nonprofit, correct?
Correct.
What does your member base consist of?
Well, we break our membership into several categories: builder and developer, which we have a significant portion of all builders and developers in the region. In sort of Washoe County is our main focus. Carson City and some of the other areas as well. And then we have our subcontractors. We have a strong subcontractor membership. And then we have our associates. So you would be an associate. You don't have a contractor's license, but you're interested in the development world, the home building world, multifamily, what have you. So that's the way we break down our membership. And yeah, we're growing, have numbers that I've never seen since I've been here. So we're proud of that.
That's fantastic. And it sounds like it's much needed as well, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, really with the housing shortage that we have. And you know, it's amazing too, because when you look out in the different media publications that are out there, especially on a local level, you'll see Don's face all over. I mean, it's a beautiful thing. Beautiful thing. Because he's out there advocating, right? I mean, you're out there advocating on behalf of I want to say everyone, not just the developers, not just the subs, but really the constituents of this area as well, because what we're finding right now is there's a significant crunch in housing.
Absolutely.
There's a shortage in multifamily, even though we have a lot coming through the pipeline, right?
Yeah.
But rents are still at historical highs, vacancies are at historical lows. So really when it looks to your involvement in the city, I mean, there's quite a few things that you're involved with, and I'd like to go over just a couple of them if that's okay.
Absolutely.
So one of them, which is fantastic, is the City of Reno Housing Taskforce. So you are actually the chair of this task force, which Mayor Hillary Sheeby has initiated.
Correct, yeah. She set up kind of an informal, hey, we have a supply problem, we have all these issues. She came to me a couple years ago and said, would you chair this for me? Absolutely. So we're looking at it from how do we get increased supply? How do we get much needed housing in all facets, all types?
Yeah.
There's not a single type that we don't need or just need. We need
It's all across.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so we've looked at processes. We've looked at different regulatory agencies that were holding up the process. We've gone and met with them. Hey, we need you to get this through quicker. You're causing 3 months delay, and carry costs or builders are going nuts on what this is doing to the cost of the end product. And so we've had great success in many different areas. Sometimes I forget it because we're always taking on more and grabbing onto new things. And so sometimes I have to look back at the successes we've had to make sure I have enough in the tank to keep going.
And you've had quite a few of them too, which is fantastic. So we thank you for that. And I think one of them was the initiative that just came out. Maybe you could talk a little more about the 1,000 units in 120 days and the goal behind it and the incentive as well.
Exactly. So we've been having this conversation for years on how do we bring supply, and I give credit to the mayor. She ran with it and said, okay, how do we incentivize? How do we come up with a way that's the carrot, not the stick, to create units? And so she came up with 1,000 homes in 120 days where you can defer your costs for RTC, regional transportation fees, your sewer
Which are the
fees.
impact fees.
Exactly, yeah. And a variety of those other fees associated with it to a specific point in time.
Okay.
Where you will still have to pay it, but if you don't have that upfront capital cost in the beginning, you can save money and come in at a more affordable rate, or it might spur you to move a project forward. So there's several things in that are helpful, and hopefully it's a pilot program.
Yeah.
So my hope is that, hey, the pilot worked. Now let's expand it. Let's move it over here. Let's try some different things. And if it doesn't work, we'll go and retool it and figure out something that does. So.
You got to start somewhere,
exactly.
Right? And when you look at the total amount of fees, and I think a lot of people don't realize this either, when it comes to the development, and in fact, there's a quote that you said, so I'm going to give you full credit for this. It's developers don't create growth.
Yeah,
right?
We don't create the demand.
I'm sorry. There you go. I should have let him talk from the get-go. Thank you about that. So I had it written down too, and it slipped my mind. So one more time, what was that?
Builders and developers don't create the demand; they respond to it. And
exactly.
So there's a lag time there, and it's not a Wayne's World. You build it and they will come.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you try that, and sometimes it doesn't work.
Which is called speculation.
Exactly.
And sometimes developers get burned on that.
A
lot of fear
speculations. That wiped a lot.
And lenders don't lend on speculation either.
No.
So
that's something that you have to remember is, we're responding to it. But to get back to the fees, a lot of people don't understand that in Washoe County we're at $50,000 a unit.
Now is that for
fees.
Multifamily or single family residential or both?
Both. Yeah, so
amazing.
by the time you get done with your water connection fee, your sewer connection fee, your building permit, your inspections, all these other fees that don't go to improving a facility.
They're just
they don't go
soft costs. Yeah.
And so it's on top of every single thing we're building here. And if you take $50,000 off the median price right now, you have a lot more affordability.
That you would. But the difference is, though, is that you still have to pay it back. So let me ask you this from this perspective, because what you guys were able to do is, in essence, work within the confinement of what you can, right? And what I mean by that is you still have rising land costs. You still have a reduction in available land that you can develop for multifamily or develop for residential. And not only that, but you're seeing it across the board. I'm sure with all of your members, especially with the general contractors and subs, there's a lack of qualified personnel to be able to come in, right, and help these projects move forward from a labor perspective.
Right.
So that's just one component of it, right? And when you look at all the other dynamics associated with it, what's some of the feedback that you got from the development community or basically your members on, from an overall perspective, what can we do?
For it is specifically to the 1,000 homes, or just in
Just
general?
in general.
I mean, so you look at what you just mentioned.
Yeah.
What can you control in there? You can control two things: time and fees.
Mm-hmm.
Really, the regulatory costs. And so those two things are really all we can control in this other sort of atmosphere that's
In your sphere of influence.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to look at how can we speed up the turn times to get a good product out where we're not getting rid of a quality review or something like that. We're not letting things slip through the cracks, but we're decreasing the time it takes to get through the regulatory process. And then what can you do to control that cost? And one of those would be to defer fees. Sparks has deferred fees for a long time. Reno defers some fees, but this is a general conversation you can have with the city of Reno and say, I want to defer these fees to this time.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different, but it's had significant success where it's been tried. So we're just looking at the things we can control and how do we do that.
And would you say the hardest part of that whole process was getting the myriad of different agencies involved in the fee structure to collaboratively work together?
Well, so for that, the city of Reno controls those fees.
Sure.
And so they can singularly do that. When we look at the other ones associated with it, no, we haven't been able to get buy-in on all of those yet. So that could be something down the road that we look at, and some of them do it, but we're just looking for the specific ones there that we can get a handle on.
Yeah. Well, it'll be exciting to see. I know the 120 days are ticking by, but I'm sure there's quite a few units that are going through this program, or this pilot program right now.
I hope so. I haven't heard of anything confirmed. I've heard of a lot of people putting their toe in the water, trying to see what it exactly is, because it's pretty much an open book, so you can get from it what you want. So I'm excited to see how it goes too.
That's fantastic. So another basically group or another involvement in really the multifamily and the housing side of it, and in fact we saw each other at the latest event, was the North Valley's Infrastructure and Growth Summit, which is something that's been spearheaded by Councilwoman Bonnie Weber, correct?
Yeah, she's done a great job. She's brought a lot of folks together to just discuss what's going on in the North Valleys, what's going on with the city in general, how can we improve, and I think there are serious solutions coming from those meetings, and they always kind of start, you don't know where it's going to go, but I think this was the third or fourth one, and so things seem to be improving there, and it's great, it's working great.
And I agree with you, and it was exciting to see basically it being a round table of government officials and private sector owners collaborating together. And quite frankly, you don't see that too often, which is very unfortunate because it really should be a collaborative effort,
I think we're seeing it more with some different leadership. I think Sparks has done great, Washoe County's doing great, and Reno's stepping up and doing great with different leadership, and they're bringing the people in to have the conversation.
Who are some examples of the people that were there?
Oh, I mean, it was basically anyone with dirt around there, right?
Yeah.
Projects, and
but I mean, as government agencies goes, we had Tumwa was in it, right?
Director. I don't think anyone from Tumwa.
Okay.
You had the assistant city manager, Councilman Reese, and Councilwoman Jordan. So, it's a good group. It's great to see they're involved, and we're the customer, and it's great they're coming and listening and hearing and seeing how we can collaborate on that stuff together.
And what's great about that too is you're starting to see from the first to the third session that we were just at how big this is getting and how interactive the owners and developers in the North Valleys are with our government officials, and how we're both trying to come to a solution together.
Absolutely.
On how we can deal with the sewer issues in addition to the flooding issues.
Yeah.
Now, can you talk to that a little bit?
Well, I think you've seen a lot from the private sector to step up and help the government entities come up with a solution-based, just a solution to all the flooding and how we're going to mitigate it in the future, what the development standards will be, how we can work with the city to ensure the safety of the local residents there on a go-forward basis, and then dealing with capacity issues. We're behind in infrastructure and planning, and so how do we pay for that? How do we fund it? But also, how do we do it at a reasonable price?
Yeah.
So all those conversations are being had to a point where the developers hearing it from the city necessity side of what they need to make it happen, and then they're hearing of what would work or wouldn't for development.
And it's interesting listening to the different issues from both sides too, because you have bottlenecks that are happening that maybe one or the other party doesn't know about. And I think one of them has to do, like you said, with capacity, and it's sewer capacity, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, what's interesting, and I still need to dive into this a little bit deeper, but some of the numbers that I heard, basically, we are so close to the capacity in North Valleys that we only have room, I think, for 600 more units until we find some sort of way to expand the facility or reduce the different lakes where you have the overflow into, right?
To some degree, yeah.
Okay.
Currently, they're doing a float. I know way more about sewers and treatment than I ever wanted to. I have no idea. Like the Dawn is the dissolved organic nitrate. I'm like, you guys. Right. But so essentially, what they're doing is they're doing a flow shape, and they're going to divert some of the flow that would have gone either to limit the capacity or just one lake, and that is being diverted.
Okay.
And once that flow shape is completed in the next year, then you'll have additional capacity. So. Do we need that? Yes. Are we concerned about capacity? Absolutely. But are we going to hit it? I hope not. And so that's and they're doing a good job of not letting someone go in and just say, hey, I potentially could have this many units, so I want to buy it all right now. It's kind of
and then corner the market on
right, exactly, on sewer. So, but that's real. Tumorf is facing the same thing with capacity issues and concerns and expansion costs, and that's a totally different problem because we have the capacity, but the nitrates are the issue because the treated water has to be put into the truckee, or you have to purchase private property rights. That then flows and it ends in Pyramid, which is a sovereign nation. So you have a lot of different entities regulating nitrates and levels. You have the EPA, the tribes, and a whole host of other things going on there. So we actually have one of the cleanest treatment centers in the country because of that.
Amazing.
So yeah, that's your 2 minutes on sewer.
And I guess what I didn't realize as well is that our weather has a lot to do with this. In other words, if it's a very wet winter, that could be an issue for capacity as well.
Yeah, storm drain, that flows out. And then also what we're seeing is the reverse, or the unintended consequence of all of our low flow shower heads, our low flow flush toilets and all that. You have less water to move a certain amount of things downstream, so that increases the nitrate level because you don't have the same amount of fresh water coming in. So
you never think about the unintended consequences, right?
Yeah, I try to, but I don't see them all coming.
Wow.
Yeah.
So are there any other exciting projects that you have coming down the pipeline right now? I know you're staying busy.
So Reno's redoing their development code, which is critical to anyone involved in building and development in the region.
And that's the renovation, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I think we just reviewed a 150-page document that I had to do and send in our kind of ideas and thoughts for how it could work better or some of the things that wouldn't work. I think the next 350-page version's coming out on that.
Well, after Dodd-Frank, this should be easy, right?
Right. Yeah.
The footnotes.
Exactly. No. So, and I don't speak planning or engineering, but I try and align myself with experts who do, so that we can. This is our chance to say something. I don't want to be a year down and say, hey, this didn't happen. Like, yeah, you had an opportunity to be involved. So, if anyone is involved in architecture, engineering, planning, this is time to get involved. We're almost too late now to be at the table. And then there's just always different things going on. We're already going into election season. We'll be involved in that from local, state, and federal. We'll be involved in upcoming legislation, hopefully. And there's just a myriad of things that I try and kind of...
Well, you stay busy without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always something going on, and trying to move things forward in a good... We kind of mentioned it, so we weren't going to say it, but trying to get everyone electronic, trying to get plan review that way, trying to get all the different regulators to use the same system would be a huge...
And become more streamlined.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I always joke that we're still doing maps and all these things the same way Mark Twain or Samuel Clemens, whichever name you prefer, did back in the good old days. And so it's like we need to step it up. We need to get those done. And I think there's a buy-in from everyone. It's just how we get there is the complicated version.
Wow. Well, you are definitely staying busy, and you're looking out for the best interest of the builders out there, the best interest of the general contractors, the subcontractors, and even the renters out there. I mean, when you look at homeowners and renters, I mean, it's the full circle of what you're doing. So if someone wants to get more involved, my recommendation is always go with an organization that, you know, goes after the same type of ideals that you have, you know. So if you're a general contractor, if you're a sub, if you're even an associate wanting to get more involved with the Builders Association of Northern Nevada, how do they do that?
Thebuilders.com, and you can find my email, cell phone, everything, our staff, and thebuilders.com is the easiest way. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever medium you choose to use, the Builders and the Builders Association of Northern Nevada. So it's the easiest way to do it, but yeah.
And Don, you and Mia really stay active, and you're really open as well in regards to people communicating with you. From what I've seen, which is fantastic. A lot of organizations, you might not find that openness to deal with just the general public, and I think you guys do a great job of it.
Thanks, I appreciate it. I actually like going to that, because when I start to tell people about the development process, I'm like, no, the city doesn't pay for the street. We actually build it and then give it to the city.
Exactly. Yeah.
So having those conversations, and then just anytime I can tell them, you know, rent control or inclusionary zone has never worked, won't work.
Yeah.
And
just educate.
You know, supply.
Huge.
So I just love to be in those conversations whenever I can.
Don, well, I really appreciate that, and I really appreciate your time as well. This was a fun conversation. I look forward to having you again soon.
I hope so. No,
all right, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Have a good one.
You too.